The state medical board is preparing to take action against a Las Vegas doctor who admits that he used his own semen to impregnate his infertility patients. As Eyewitness News first reported last night, veteran physician Dr. Quincy Fortier fathered at least 2 babies with a patient who is now suing him. Could he have any other children who don't know he's their dad? George Knapp is here to continue this exclusive story.
Paul and Dave, did he use his own semen to impregnate other fertility patients? The answer is yes. What we don't know is how many times he did it. Dr. Fortier, who's now 93 years old, enjoyed an excellent reputation before closing his practice 2 years ago. But he had a Nevada medical license for more than half a century, so it's not hard to imagine how many patients he saw and how many children he might have surreptitiously fathered, children who are now adults and who deserve an answer to the question, who's your daddy?
I can't comment. I'm sorry.
Las Vegas businessman Pat Fulmer can't talk about the strange events that have torn his family apart and contributed to his bankruptcy. But the lawsuit filed by Fulmer and his former wife Carol Lee says plenty. The target of the suit is Las Vegas fertility doctor Quincy Fortier. It alleges that during the 1980s, Fortier used his own sperm to impregnate Carol Lee during artificial insemination procedures. DNA tests confirm that Fortier is the biological father of the Fulmers' 2 youngest daughters. That news caused the family to implode. The parents divorced. Lawyers for the doctor are trying to settle the case and seal it, and for an obvious reason. They worry how many other cases might be lurking out there.
So that's the reason I purchased it.
Dr. Fortier has been practicing medicine in Nevada since 1945. He was the first fertility doctor in the valley and has helped hundreds, perhaps thousands of couples to have children. He co-founded Women's Hospital, spent decades as the top doc at the Nellis Air Base Hospital, and for the past several years has performed inseminations from a home office. Other doctors who spoke to us off the record speculate that there could be dozens of families out there who are unaware that Dr. Fortier is a blood relative. In addition to fathering 2 children with Mrs. Fulmer in the 80s, he did the same thing in the 70s. A former patient sued him after learning he was the father of her 2 children. There was also an incident back in the 60s. Fortier's adopted daughter testified in court that she was 17 and a virgin when she became pregnant after receiving a, quote, medical exam from Fortier. In a deposition, Fortier said he doesn't know how his daughter became pregnant, adding there were lots of sperm samples around the lab. Were these the only incidents during a 57-year career? In his sworn deposition, Fortier was asked if he used his own semen with Mrs. Fulmer. He answered, quote, very definitely. When asked if he thinks it's okay for a doctor to use his own sperm to impregnate a patient, Fortier said yes, if it were necessary.
Not to my knowledge, no.
In the Fulmer case, it wasn't. Fortier tested Pat Fulmer's sperm and said it was fine. Other tests confirmed this. So why did he do it? To avoid paying a sperm bank for samples or for the ego satisfaction of having many offspring? Regardless of why, it's way out of bounds, says Dr. John Martin, head of the local OBGYN Society. It's deplorable, deceptive to patients, and simply wrong, Martin says. But is it illegal? No, say Fortier's lawyers. The only requirement in Nevada law is that if sperm other than the husband's is used, the parents must sign a consent form and the doctor must notify health officials. Fortier says the Fulmers gave him their consent, but he never asked them to sign anything, and he's never filed any such form with the government. It's one reason the state medical board is moving forward with a complaint against Fortier. The complaint was filed in 2003, but won't be heard by the board until October. A subcommittee found enough evidence to substantiate that Fortier failed to follow the law and has brought the medical profession into disrepute. Why didn't the board take action 5 years ago when news stories surfaced about the earlier case? A spokesperson told us the board does not take action based on media reports. The doctor was asked to estimate how many times he inseminated patients with his own semen. The answer, unknown. In his own deposition, Pat Fulmer said one reason he pursued the lawsuit is that he figured the truth would come out one day, and maybe at a bad time, say when one of his kids needed a blood transfusion or an organ donation. If there are others scattered around the country, that kind of terrible surprise might still be in their future. If you'd like to read excerpts from Dr. Fortier's deposition, we've posted some of them on our website, klastv.com.
The incident where he allegedly impregnated his own 17-year-old adopted daughter, do we know if he used his own semen?
Well, persons close to this case tell me that he did, although I have not seen any of the DNA test results to confirm that. The daughter, who is now in her 50s and lives in another state, says she put the baby up for adoption. You know, Dr. Fortier was greatly respected by his colleagues, and former patients just admired him greatly, but doing this, even if it was only 5 times that we know of, besmirches a lifetime of honorable work, and you know, only one person knows for sure why he did it, and that person's not talking.
Okay. Thank you, George.
Sure.